Welcome to the Wheats on Your Mind podcast. My name is Aaron Harries. Wheats on Your Mind is brought to you by the Kansas Wheat Commission and Kansas Association of Wheat Growers. In this episode, we catch up with Justin Gilpin, the CEO of Kansas Wheat. Justin Gilpin has been the CEO of Kansas Wheat since September 1st of 2009. Before joining Kansas Wheat, he worked at General Mills, where he was a wheat buyer for 3 flour mills. Justin, thanks for joining me. It's a very busy time of the year, a special time of the year. Wheat harvest is going on, and what's unique about it is the speed at which it's happening all across the state.
Right. It's good to be back in the bunker with you here, Aaron. So, again, congrats on how well the podcast is going and the timely topics that you guys are covering. I know it's getting broad appeal, and it's really good to listen to, and you do a fantastic job with it. But, yeah, certainly if we look at this wheat crop right now, the blast furnace that we all have had the last couple of days being 100-degree weather and 40 and 50-mile-an-hour winds really flipped the switch on the wheat crop. But as we're recording this, we're still a little bit early in knowing what all the yield results are going to be, but it's seen a lot of variability out there as far as some of those drought-stressed areas having some challenges with lower yields, but then we're seeing some areas in that southwest part of the state that have benefited from moisture and it's a good filling period that we're having some above average yields. And so I think overall, hopefully we can dodge some of the rains that are forecasted here in the next couple nights and get this crop in the bin. But we are harvesting wheat from Oklahoma City to Holdridge, Nebraska, as we sit here today. So it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, and severe weather obviously is part of the expectation in harvest, but we've had some reports, and rainfall I think has been the story in Oklahoma and southern Kansas, but the wind, I know you visited with some farmers of the wind's been so severe that we've even had some threshing of the wheat out in the field, is the stories I've been hearing.
Well, yeah, there's certainly been some of that, a little bit of yield loss due to that. I think probably one of the bigger concerns is that I-35 corridor. Right when harvest got started over a week ago, we had those heavy rains in that McPherson, Inman, Wichita area that would unfortunately we're going to lose not only just some test weight, but certainly lost some bushels in that area. So, but as we're hearing better reports coming in from west central Kansas, southwest Kansas, I think when you look at the entirety of the state, hopefully some of those better test weights and proteins will help with that, offset that when we look at how this crop in its entirety of potentially 330 to 350 million bushels for the state of Kansas comes in.
Well, I know you have been putting on a lot of miles lately working on behalf of Kansas wheat farmers, and important miles, trips to Africa, trips to Asia, having the opportunity to visit with millers representing South America. I think at this point in time, it's great news in the sense that U.S. wheat is competitive on the global marketplace, and I think you've sensed the opportunity that we have to move more bushels than maybe we have in recent years.
Well, I think it's been an imperative that we're hearing from our farmer leadership right now is that we need to be putting the full court press on getting this window of opportunity to claw back some potential market share for demand, especially at a time we've been dealing with some moderated crop prices with elevated input prices. I think it's, as our wheat organizations look forward, what can we do to help our farmers in this environment? It's certainly our wheat leadership right now is wanting to do what we can to get bushels and build back some of that demand that maybe we've lost the last couple of years due to production shortfalls and global market dynamics. We've had really good discussions with buyers, and you're seeing some hard red winter wheat sales that are resulting from that. So we're going to continue to do that over the next couple months as this crop gets put in the bin. But That's always what it's an exciting time of year right now, is really how harvest goes the next couple of weeks kind of dictates how we market this crop the next 10 months. And having those discussions, developing those relationships, and knowing that the reputation and the history of Kansas wheat and our farmers is well received with our buyers, and re-engaging in those discussions, I think, is very important, and I'm hopeful to see some more fruits from those discussions resulting.
So the marketing year ends at the end of May, and so we're just a few weeks into the FY26 marketing year. So how did we wrap up the last year compared to what USDA projected, and maybe what's the optimism or pessimism for the current market year?
Well, looking ahead, I think our wheat sales have gotten off to a good start, or a brisk start. I mean, we're dealing with so many dynamics right now in the wheat industry. I know you and I we're not short of things to be doing or talking about or dealing with right now. Whether we're talking about here in a month, the pause on tariffs will be coming at us. We've got Farm Bill and reconciliation that we're dealing with. We've got USDA issues not only on the ARS research side that could be impacting investment that farmers have made over the years to what will our food aid and the humanitarian assistance programs be looking like. And so it's from the gauntlet of things that we're dealing with. We've got to find a way to navigate and build back that market share when we have an opportunity in this environment with all of the things that are going on. Just as we're recording this, right, we're coming off of kind of a historic weekend that with the bombing of Iranian nuclear facilities, the threat of naval disruption through the Strait of Hormuz, and then what response is still looming, as the market and our prices, our farmers are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. As we sit here today, there hasn't been a direct impact on that, and somewhat wheat trade seems to be focused more on the overall fundamental picture of things. But as we sit and trying to work with our buyers and talking about this year's crop, about the reliability of U.S. wheat exports and the quality and having a better quantity this year, those discussions have all been really well received. And when we look at some potential production challenges that may be in other parts of the world, there's concerns about dryness in parts of Canada right now that could impact spring wheat production, and we're just now starting to see what the Russian harvest is going to have and where they're going to be for exports. But looking out for fiscal year 26, it looks like an improved year, opportunity to get hard red winter wheat and U.S. wheat increasing on the export side. And I think that that's what our farmer leadership really is focused on, wanting our organizations to have as a priority.
You recently hosted a trade team from South America with representatives, the CEOs of the milling associations of those countries. They had a chance to come here to Kansas for a day and visit an export facility and see some wheat harvest that we tried to sneak in between the rain at the time. What are the chief concerns with those folks? We're talking the head of the Brazilian, Peruvian Millers Associations.
Well, that was really a unique opportunity that U.S. Wheat put together, and dealing with the associations that represent all of the millers, or a big portion of the millers, in some of our larger markets in South America with Brazil, Colombia, Ecuador, and Chile. And having those discussions with those association leaders that then they can take back the experience that they had while they were here in the United States and Kansas back to their members of their association about what this year's crop looks like, of a meeting with industry and trade representatives that they can share those contact informations. And what it really brought home to me, it was in those discussions, is wheat is such a global business, but yet it's still a small business that really relies on relationships, and relationships go a long way, especially when you're dealing with a very competitive global marketplace where they have multiple options where they might be able to source their needs from, but to be able to build those relationships, let them see directly where the wheat is being harvested from and from those individuals and those farmers and those families that are producing that grain, I think goes a long way in building those relationships and impacting those decisions and allowing us a foot in the door to try to gain back some of that market share that maybe we've lost over the last couple of years.
And the markets are so different. I mean, you talk about the importance of relationships, but just for example, outside of those South American millers, you had the chance to talk to buyers in South Africa, representing African countries, and you had a chance to talk to buyers in Vietnam, representing Asian countries. Give people a flavor of just how different those markets are.
Well, if you think about where those logistically where those markets are and what we're competing against and how those discussions evolve around different priorities and different highlights that we've got to really use when trying to market our grains. The South Africa market is one that we had a presence in the past decade. Logistically, it's a long ways from the Texas Gulf, and we're directly competing against Black Sea wheat that might be going in there. But after those discussions, what we were able to have to see some direct sales of some hard red winter and some hard red spring going into South Africa is very encouraging, especially because there's definitely some political friction right now into that market. And being able to have conversations into East Africa, where there's a portion of high pro, whether it's high pro winter or high pro spring, might be able to be a fit and competitive right now. I think that was encouraging. But then, of course, Nigerians, and then with having Nigerians here this week, having those discussions, seeing those sales of hard red winter wheat into Nigeria are good to see, and hope to build on those. In dealing with the Asian markets, that the sophistication of the milling markets is always impressive for me to see in dealing with, whether you're in North Asia or South Asia, and how they are making multiple products and blends, whether it's high pro or soft white wheat, and where they can incorporate hard red winter wheat into, and how they view hard red winter wheat as a very stable, reliable product and consistent product. I think those were all encouraging discussions, but it's great to see the relationship that U.S. Wheat Associates has developed in those regions that allows our farmers to have that face from the other side of the globe and telling our story, but then allowing us to be able to promote and market and hopefully build on those relationships, that demand base where. Both of those areas that you mentioned, Aaron, are going to be extremely important, not just for this year, but looking out for the next 10 years, where your consumption and population increases and the demand base in Africa is going to be so important that we're having a presence. But then also South Korea continues to grow as a very important market for the United States, and a lot of agricultural products, and wheat being a portion of that, and a growing portion of that, I think is a real testament to the work that U.S. Wheat Associates is doing. But then also, if you see the growth in the market share and the foothold that we have from U.S. Into, say, the Philippines, I think is very encouraging. And we mentioned earlier the tariff discussion and trade deals that are trying to be talked about between the United States here in the next month. Hopefully we see some closure on. We've heard results from China and the UK and the United States, but the two others that you're seeing mention that we're hopeful to see some type of trade deal would be Vietnam and Korea, and both of those would have wheat implications, and so we're hopeful to see those talks continue and some type of deal done, because those are going to be extremely important markets for U.S. wheat farmers.
Yeah, the message that we keep shouting from the mountaintops is just give us the markets. That's what our farmers need. So I failed to mention that of all the miles you put on, you've been in D.C. also the last couple of weeks. What's the mood there? What gossip did you hear on the Hill?
Well, I know Dave's got his finger on the edit button over there. I see that, so that's probably good. But it's a challenging environment from my perspective in D.C. right now. There's so much that's going on, and whether if you want to talk about the challenges we have to get a farm bill across the finish line, I think that a lot of focus is probably shifting over to the reconciliation and seeing hopefully to get some wins for agriculture out of that. But whether where we're at on the MAHA discussions and what implications that potentially could have on production agriculture, and how do we make sure that we're engaging in that in the right way, that we can be a part of at the table, and making sure that sound science is used in developing those policies because of the potential impact on production agriculture, but then also the processed foods and the role that wheat can play potentially when they're looking at whole grains, and but then also making sure that we're getting out the right information about what good fortified flour has done over enriched flour has done for populations, and over the last 40 years, that we really shouldn't get lost in these discussions. And so we got to make sure we're doing that in the right way, that we can have a voice at the table in those big discussions. But probably the main point that I was in DC kind of talking on was humanitarian assistance and USDA programs, and of course, we're concerned that the movement of trying to get food for peace, the legacy program that initially started in Kansas, signed into the bill by President Eisenhower. We're trying to, with the dismantling of USAID, to see if USDA could take on food for peace, but not seeing that come out of the House. And where they're at right now, looks like it's probably going to stay potentially in the State Department, which raises some concerns for me specifically. A lot of our challenges and issues that we've brought up with USAID implementing food for peace over the last several years are now going to maybe potentially be those same people within the State Department making those same decisions and how they might be handling the food for peace program, not so much with U.S. grown commodities that then benefit the whole value chain and delivering that humanitarian assistance, but maybe a heavier reliance on cash, and not seeing a change in that is something that we're going to have to probably work through since we're not going to get that change of food for peace over to USDA. But those are all issues that we're going to be working on behalf of our Kansas wheat farmers.
Well, wrapping up closer to home, as farmers are bringing in that wheat right now, they're seeing the rewards of investment in research genetics, but also seeing the challenges that lie in front of them. So last word here at the Wheat Innovation Center, which farmers built here in Manhattan, Kansas, on the importance of what's going on here.
Well, that's a big question, Aaron, but what deserves a very big answer, right? I mean, there's a lot of work going on here on a lot of different facets to trying to deliver through genetics solve problems for farmers, and especially a year like this where we saw such widespread virus, and trying to understand what varieties perform well, but then also what production practices may impact some of those production challenges through virus that was impacting the wheat crop this year. But just that work and that investment that's going on at the Kansas Wheat Innovation Center is something I know our farmers and our leadership take a lot of pride in. Not just on developing in that pipeline of genetics for new varieties, but from that quality standpoint, having partners like Graincraft that are working right alongside of our breeding programs, and having that private partner influence on those genetics, and that investment coming out is benefiting our farmers. And then the long-term game that we have with the Wheat Genetics Resource Center and the work that's going on in germplasm development just such a rich resource that our researchers now have the tools to mine into it in a more targeted way to hopefully bring through those genetics and faster to get into our varieties in a more efficient way are all things that we feel really good about, and hopefully from a genetics variety standpoint, agronomics is going to have benefits that are coming out with these new varieties, but then also market impacts with some quality demanded traits that are all encouraging to see. But I don't know, that's a big question you asked. I tried to give it a short answer there.
That was a great answer. A lot of good work going on here, and those results are going to keep coming out in future years. Well, Justin, thanks for the update, and thanks for racking up those miles for us.
Yeah, always good to be with you, Aaron, and thanks for the work that you're doing for Kansas wheat farmers.
Thank you to Justin Gilpin, the CEO of Kansas Wheat, for joining us on this episode of the podcast. If you have any follow-up questions for Justin or for anything we talked about, email us at kswheat@kswheat.com. If you'd like to check out previous episodes of the podcast, visit wheatsonyourmind.com. And to all the farmers out there, have a safe wheat harvest. Thanks for listening.